Hi. Welcome back, everybody. Is it on? Okay. So here we are, the generational transfer of leadership at Hollyhock. Hopefully I teased it well enough before the break that everyone came back and no one snuck off for a nap. I know it's a long day, but we're keeping you here with this very special panel. A couple things. So as I mentioned, these 5 people have never sat together and told these stories. This literally never happened before. So we have a video camera. It's just trained on the stage. And because we want to get better at capturing our stories at Hollyhock. So we're going to have that taping for the remarks portion. If you're uncomfortable with the Q&A, you have a question, you don't want it to be recorded, please just signal to us and we can turn that off, no problem. We are very, very grateful to be hosting these 5 speakers tonight. So I'm going to do a quick round of introductions. First up, we have Siobhan Robinsong. Siobhan is a beloved community leader, choir leader. She has been working with people to raise their voices in song for change and positive social good for decades. And she is one of our original founders of Hollyhock. Welcome, Siobhan. And we have, beside Siobhan, Rex Weyler. Rex is one of the co-founders of Greenpeace International, also a co-founder of Hollyhock. He is an accomplished author and a longtime courtesan. And we're very thrilled to have you here, Rex, as well. Dana Bass Solomon, who many of you will know in this room. Dana led this organization. She is our graduated CEO. She led our organization for 18 years. And at the end of 2017, she officially graduated, but remains a very supportive member of our community. She originally hired me, so I owe Dana always a debt of gratitude. And we have Joel Solomon. So Joel came originally, the story goes, as a gypsy gardener, I believe, up to these parts, and then has been our board chair at Hollyhock for 25 years. So from gypsy gardener to board chair, 25 years, there's a story in there for sure. And Joel is actually transitioning from board chair this month and will remain. Actually, yeah, next week. It's pretty nuts. This is a very pivotal time. So you can see why we wanted to do this theme at Hollyhock. And Joel will remain on the board for another year to help with that transition. And then behind me here is Peter Wrinch, our current CEO and the very brave soul who has taken on the leadership of Hollyhock 2 years ago? A year and a half? Yeah, going into the 2nd season. So a very special group of people. I'm just going to talk us through the format of how this is going to go. We want to make sure that we don't keep you too late. So we have asked these wonderful people to tell a 7-minute story. And I realize that is woefully insufficient to take 37 years and distill it down to 7 minutes, but we're going to try, and we're going to get on a tape and see how it goes. And so Christine, behind me, is going to be our wonderful timekeeper. We are going to be lovingly firm on the 7 minutes. And she's going to ring our meditation bell there at 6 minutes, and then ring it twice at 7 minutes. And then you'll know you have another minute. And so, yeah, we're going to be firm on the timekeeping because we want to leave a spacious Q&A. We have the sense that the theme, generational transfer, is relevant to quite a few people in this room. So please engage. We want to make it maximally spacious for the question and answer. We'll have about 15, 20 minutes for that. And then my hope is that Siobhan will lead us in some song to close off our evening, because it wouldn't be a Hollyhock gathering otherwise, and send us all to Lullaby Land that way. Thank you. So that's the setup. We usually do community agreements at gatherings like this, but there's only going to be one agreement tonight, and that is love. We're all going to agree, I hope, to enter this space with love. So if you agree with that and that feels good to you, please raise your hand. I'm really checking with the panelists. Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So let's get started. On stage, we have 3-ish interwoven chapters of our Hollyhock history, symbolizing 2 very significant transitions. So I'm going to ask a question prompt, and I welcome your thoughts. You have each loved and stewarded and carried this beloved entity, Hollyhock, for many years and then passed it on. Tell us how that journey has been for you. And we'll start with Siobhan.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would have to say it's been full of surprises. Because when I moved up here from Vancouver to Cortes Island at the end of 1980, with my husband Lee, my then husband Lee Robinsong, and our baby girl Erin Skye, we were just coming to have a simple life. And he's a wonderful painter, and he was going to be painting, and I was going to just be looking after a little girl, and maybe finding a little bit of work here and there. I thought, I could maybe go and get a cooking job down at that Cold Mountain place. This place used to be known as Cold Mountain Institute, and we had no connection with it. And sure enough, I got a job. I loved it. I'd get up 6 a.m. before the baby was awake, and I'd walk down the road there and come in here and cook up breakfast for everybody, and go home and have the rest of the day to play with my baby and have fun. And then everything changed. It was on her second birthday. So we arrived here at the end of where was it? December. And so it was the next summer. The next summer. Our dear friend Rex. Now, we'd worked very closely together in Lee and Rex and I in a magazine called the Greenpeace Chronicles. And beyond that, we were great friends. I mean, he's the kind of friend that was at Erin's birth taking pictures, fabulous pictures that we still have. Thanks for that. And so we were showing him around this beautiful place that we had landed in. And Rex, take it over for a while there.
Siobhan and I are merging our 7 minutes. Timekeeper, beware. Okay, so Siobhan and I had lived and worked together in Vancouver. Greenpeace itself had gone through a bit of a transition of its first decade, and I was kind of half moving on, looking for other things to do, and ended up working for a magazine in Boston, New Age magazine in Boston, with some friends I had met, Rick Ingrassi and Peggy Taylor. And I was also doing some work with the Lakota First Nation in North Dakota, and they were involved at that time in some extremely difficult and intense land claim issues. And I had been there spent an evening there in which their camp on land that they claimed was completely surrounded by federal agents with fairly sophisticated looking weapons and that creepy sort of military vibe. And I was sitting in the camp with these Lakota people with these little, like, 22 hunting rifles and stuff like that, and kind of shaking with what was going to happen if there was actually an armed conflict. And anyway, that one of those evenings sitting around the fire, one of the elders had said to me how much he appreciated that we had come there to help them and just that we stayed there with them. And but he says everybody needs to have a place where that they take that they in which they inhabit, that they live in a place, and that they commit to that place. And he was saying, we appreciate very much that you come here and help us, but your first priority has to be to your place, and you need to know what that place is. Shortly after that, I came back to Vancouver, and I was at the Vancouver Folk Festival, which I went to every year, and loved so much because there were people from all over the world there. And I saw these 7 Hungarian women singing, and what was amazing to me was there was this young girl who was maybe 8 or 9, and there was this teenage girl who was 13 or 14, and there was this girl in her 20s, and it went right up, and the elder of the 7 women was probably somebody who's my age now, was in their 60s or 70s, and they were all singing these beautiful harmonies, and they had this bucket, and they went down to the water, and they picked up water, and they were going, cast your ring into the pot, cast your ring into the pot, and get your fortune. And at first, this is some sort of Hungarian gypsy trick, but nevertheless, I was so intrigued that I took my ring off and I put it in the pot. And so one by one later, this took a long time. They went down, they scooped up the water, and of course, everybody that now had a ring invested was following them. And anyway, one by one, she pulls out the rings. While they're singing, they never stop singing, and she pulls out the rings, and you step forward and get your ring, and she whispers, your fortune. And when my ring was held up, I came up and I got the ring, and she leans over and she says to me, are we at our 14 minutes? Yeah. All right.
About halfway there.
So I have to finish this at 1 minute. Where was I? The ring.
The fortune.
Yeah, the fortune. So she leans over and she says to me, ding, red hollyhocks growing above the hedge will be very important to you. And at first I was really disappointed. I mean, that's my fortune, that's it. And I was driving around Vancouver, and I saw some hollyhocks, but they were pink, and I was like, and anyway, a few days later, according to Siobhan's records, I came up here, ran into Siobhan and Lee. I came up to see them, and we were walking down the beach. We saw this place. I asked about it. We came up here. I was sitting in the fireplace room here, and looking at the place going, wow, I mean, nobody was here. Can I have some of your minutes? Can I have one of your minutes?
Keep going.
And thinking, wow, so this place was sort of abandoned a little bit at the time. There was a caretaker, and that was it. And I was thinking, somebody has to look after this place. And wow, this would be a cool place. Maybe we could all live here or something. And Siobhan and our friend Kate come running in from the deck, and they go, Rex, you've got to see this, because I had told them the story about the Hungarian women and the Hollyhocks, and they said, you got to see this, and I ran out to the front, followed them out to right out here, off the porch, and there was a hedge, and above the hedge were hollyhocks, and they were bright red. And my knees got weak. I really, I'm not really the woo-woo type. I'm sort of more practical sort of type, evidence type person, And, but it really was, and so that was the source of the name of Hollyhock, and thank you for loaning me one of your minutes. I'll pay you back someday.
No, I wanted you to tell that. Yeah, so as I said, my life, the simple little life that we were going to have here, raising our little girl on Cortez, changed from that very day rapidly. Because we were standing in the circle outside the red hollyhocks, big, tall plant, I started getting this kind of tangling, that's not the word, tingling feeling in my head. And even every time I talk about it, it comes back. It was a very sacred kind of a feeling. And I felt like it was saying, yes, we are asking something of you. Now, we should have mentioned, this place was for sale at this time. Cold Mountain had closed down a couple of months earlier, and it was for sale. Now, for $500,000 or something. And I remember Lee and I, between us, we had $6. That was that's how much we had. Rick, I remember Rex telling us that he had $2,000.
Like
wow, which was like, okay. But because what was happening with that tingling feeling, I was just feeling, and I think you were too, like we were being asked to do something with this place. We were being asked to invite people here, people who, which used to talk about the innies and the outies. At that time, it seemed that half of the people that we knew were working on, spiritual development and learning to meditate and all of that. And the other half that we knew were concerned about the environment and saving the world. And never the twain did meet. Right? And because of that, there was a lot of friction. There was certainly a lot of friction, for instance, in the Greenpeace movement for all the great work they were doing. See, my brother Bill, a great friend of Rex's, he was on the board, and that's where they used to have the board meetings upstairs. And I was the younger sister. I'd moved out here to BC from Winnipeg, and I was staying in his basement at the time, wondering what I was going to do with my life. So one of the things I would do, of course, would be eavesdrop on their rantings and ravings. It was clear that there was another way, and the feeling that this place could be a place where activists of all kinds would come and learn how to be really good to each other and with each other, and where the innies and the outies could merge, was the vibe I was getting from it. I had never thought about that before until that moment under the tree.
And so perhaps the spiritual people would pick up some political activist awareness.
So the whole thing seems so completely far-fetched in a way, because in terms of the normal way of doing things, there was no chance in the world. Not only did I not have money, but I didn't know anybody who did, right? And so, and same with Rex. And so what we said was, let's hold this as sacred, because we felt like this is something sacred. So we're not going to just blab about it to anybody. We're going to keep it to our hearts. We're going to keep our eyes open, and we're going to see what happens next. That was the plan. Rex went back to Boston. I went, and our house sit that was just up the road came to an end. This is in the summer now. And we had to find a place to live. Okay, so we started looking around, and the next thing we hear, the owner of this place, who lived in Vancouver, was looking for somebody. There had been some caretakers here. They'd given up. They'd gone. They were looking for someone to come and look after the place for the winter. We applied. I guess we must have been the only ones, because we didn't have a clue how to manage a place like this, a whole property with all these buildings in the winter. Not a clue. But we moved in because, I don't know, maybe I was like really a nutcase, just feeling like we are being called to do this. But I don't think so. I think it was very real. We did move in. And, one more minute. Oh, my goodness. Well, gee, I don't know. Yeah. We moved in the next spring. Rex had started finding some people with some money in Boston. Not really super rich people, but people with more than we did. I had $6. Yeah, I had a friend in Winnipeg. Had a little money. We put together enough that we were able to get in touch with Jean Weaver and say, we think we can buy this. And she gave us pretty very reasonable terms, could spread it out over a few years. To our amazement, the bank guy in Campbell River took a liking to us and thought it was all very interesting and gave us some money too. And here we are, if that's...
Thank you, Rex and Siobhan, and your rebellious hearts. The best laid plans, and then there's merging of minutes.
Yeah, so good. I want to give some of my minutes.
Yeah, of course. Do you want the prompt again, Dana, or you want to just flow through from here?
Oh, I can.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it's so good to see everybody. Welcome. And what an incredible act to follow. That was so cool to hear your story like this. And so a few CEOs came and went and had huge impact, and lots of amazing things were happening. The Hollyhock Leadership Institute was born, a school for social change. Their ED was sitting right there, Karen Mahan, was the executive director, and became a great collaborator in good crime with me over the years. So that's a very important thing to get out. I came to Hollyhock probably in 1998. In 1999, I was asked to join the board of Hollyhock with some of the folks who are here in this room. And in 2000, some things changed, and I applied for the role as CEO, or maybe it was operations director first, and then CEO. Those details probably aren't that important. Here's what was important. And I'm going to ask you to raise your hands if you've ever experienced this in your organization. Finances were grim. Okay, there we go. Okay. When I got here, I found out then, up in the old library, that we were losing about $300,000 that year, and that we had a year to get it fixed up. So that was the conditions that I came into. There were lots of challenges on a number of levels. There was a lot of incredible opportunity as well. And that's why I got myself here. I was looking for the opportunity. I've been accused of having rose-colored glasses, so here I was. And so what I did is I asked everybody I could find to ask this question, well, what would success look like? What would that mean? Like, do we have to, what is it? And so some of the things that I heard were, well, we got to get to operational break even, and we have to pay better wages. We're not paying good enough wages. We got to do better with that with our staff. And we have to grow the social and environmental program and mission at Hollyhock. We have to grow it. That has to be systematically grown. And we need to protect the land. Like, the land is one of the most important things. I heard that from Rex. I heard it from Siobhan when I talked to them when I first came here, and also from everyone. Everyone felt that that was the sweet, important thing. And also bringing forth attention and consciousness and spirit without having any religion or specific religious affiliation. To keep that as part of our culture and what we cared about. And also to welcome the Cortez community. How many of you are running or operating or part of a center where you feel like your center is quite separate from the local community? Yeah, so a good number of you, not everybody, thank goodness. Things have gotten better. So after I heard all this stuff, I thought for myself what I could be helpful with, and the kind of the golden key was partnerships. And I thought, how are we going to do this? It's not going to be me. It's not going to be just the board. We have to partner with all the people that we can partner with. So let me see if I can find my notes. Yeah. Some of the examples of that were with the Hollyhock Leadership Institute. We really became partners. We tried to figure out, we battled it out sometimes, like, how much can you pay? No, we have to pay a bit more. We have to give the staff something. We have to, so we worked things out, and we became really good partners. There was a publication that had started in Vancouver called Shared Vision. And I remember meeting with Rex a few times. He was the editor, publisher, chief dude there, and we partnered with them and figured out how we could exchange ads and do stories and stuff, and that was really exciting. There was an organization that was almost birthed, I hope I'm saying this right, but maybe partially birthed here at Hollyhock, called Power of Hope, which was youth empowerment through the arts. And we partnered with Power of Hope and Peggy Taylor, who was on our board. And I could tell you on and on. It just was incredible. And we decided, as Hollyhock senior leadership leadership and as the board and as the team, we're going to just go for it. And so like one of the goals in those early days of my leadership was bring us a great partner. Bring us a great partner, more than bring us a participant or some money, because we felt that partnerships were rich and deep and really helped us go. So let's see, I'm going to skip down on that and say, well, part of what happened here is that I think that it's really important. I'm trying to speak directly to you about practical things that matter. So one of the practical things that mattered was we kept developing our board, because we were in this situation where we had to figure out what's the best thing. We weren't able to draw tons of money on our board, but we had people who had skills, and Siobhan got us to sing all the time, and that really actually mattered. It was like a tradition with every board meeting, and we learned to listen while we sang, and there just so many things happened. And we had board members who were involved in all those organizations that I mentioned. So we had board members who 15 years ago put their foot down and said, you must have ancient forest-free toilet paper here starting tomorrow, or we're not going to be on the board. So like we had people holding us to task. There was a land use committee that I think these guys started way early on, and we really cared about a lot of important things. So I'm going to fast forward to saying that we ended up really thinking about what are some of the goals that need to happen before the leadership. 1 minute. Okay. Here's some of our goals. We wanted to pay off our full mortgage debt. That was $2.2 million. We wanted to take our for-profit entity to charitable. We accomplished that over time. We brought the Hollyhock Leadership Institute programming in-house, and we got legal protections and covenants on the land so that this land can never be subdivided. And I'll say in my less than a minute that the wind had changed. And I don't know how many of you have ever seen the Mary Poppins movie, the old one or the new one, but you remember when the wind changed and she could leave? And honestly, that's how I felt. I felt like, God, we've accomplished all this stuff. The times are changing, priorities are changing, and it's time for me to move on. So we developed really a 5-year plan for succession of leadership. And I would just say, I'll say quickly that I gave 11 months notice, which allowed the board to really have the time it required to hire our new amazing CEO, Peter. You'll hear more about that from him. And that Joel as my partner in all this work, who also was one of my greatest benefits, became my beloved husband, who's been the board chair for a long time. We made the plan all together, and I went over time. So there's lots more, and I would just say Joel can tell you a little bit more about how things went, but the good news is all of those goals happened, and now there's a whole new world, and it's really important that as hard as it has been to let go, in some ways, it's also been extraordinarily beautiful and helpful for my own personal evolution as a leader. So over to you, Joel.
Three of the most important people in my life are sitting here. I think Siobhan reeled me in as a young man trying to figure out life. Rex was a super important mentor and still will be in giving me a perspective on social and environmental and justice issues, indigenous issues, and all kinds of things. And Dana, who I helped recruit to the board and then to CEO, married me. And then we got to do this together. It was a very unique arrangement, but we got to do this together, and we set things in place to deal with conflicts of interest through the board, and we took care of as much as we could in that regard. It obviously made for a strong partnership, and also maybe that was hard for some others who felt that was too strong of a partnership. I'm sure over the 18 years that we did this together, there were all kinds of feelings and views, but Because of circumstances in my life, another very important woman named Carol Newell, I was working for Carol. Carol had inherited a lot of money and wanted the majority to go into good, important things today and not wait till she died or till something else happened. And Hollyhock was one of the beneficiaries of that. And that was an important part in the history where we went from scraping together every possible penny to stay alive to actually having some creative capital to work with. Siobhan later, 11 and a half years ago, gave me her kidney. So this is deep. This is deep, this scene here and what has gone on between us all. So our lives are very deeply intertwined and through this land. A couple of other things I want to say. Over the years, governance and how we did the board and the shift from a for-profit to a not-for-profit where 45 people gave up their ownership and their financial value. Some extraordinary things happened. We worked by consensus, even though legally we were a company and had to three-quarter vote was the British Columbia maximum vote you could do. But I don't know of a decision that was ever made here that didn't actually get to consensus by the body that was making it ultimately. So we have never really had a contentious vote. We've taken the time to get through it, but we've been pretty efficient about it also. Some of you may know some stories of less efficiency in consensus process. In any case, what inspired me to make this a centerpiece of my volunteer career in life was the social and environmental vision and the agenda of this as a place to cultivate, nurture, and take care of social and cultural change, and to be a place that the facility could be used to host that with inner skills and personal skills at the base of it, a little bit of magic or a lot of magic, and taking on impossible tasks in the world and supporting others who were doing that. So this Hollyhock Leadership Institute you've heard about has attracted all kinds of activists, future political office holders, successful business people, people from all different walks of life that have been drawn here because of stories of the deep, healing power that had happened for them and the kind of empowerment of cross-sector, intergenerational learning together, being together, and relationship fields. And the list, I can't tell you right now, there definitely needs to be a book about this. In any case, many, many things happened. But I want it because this is about generational transfer of leadership. Dana and I's strategy was a 5-year process to be as gentle as possible in the passing on of it. And the first couple of years were just telling the board repeatedly and normalizing the idea that we would complete. And then we made a plan where they gave the 1-year notice, and Dana said 11 months on her, and that I would stay through the recruitment and for at least 1 year to support the new leadership. That stretched out another half year due to various, to strong requests, so we weren't quite ready to do that, but it stretched another half a year. And I will stay 1 more year on the board to support the new board chair who comes. This land protection is a super key thing, and we've been through multiple steps to get to where we are. The final step is to figure out how to set up a structure that might protect from the possible future sale or leasing of the land to something that may be anathema to the work here. So it's a complicated and delicate thing. I'll be happy to share any of those legal and political parts of this as we go through the week here. Please ask anything. What inspired me and what continues to inspire me is the success of what was seeded out of the vision of these folks and their peers that came in that actually cared about the biggest possible picture in the world and giving people the personal skills, the spiritual well-being, and the personal depth to go back out and make shit happen in really tough issues. So there are tar sands campaigners coming here. There are people that are getting trained to how to run for elected office. There are social change activists of all kinds coming. And meanwhile is a classic personal development, inner skills program with a wide variety that you're all familiar with from your own organizations to support the well-being of the individuals. And the original tagline was the holiday that heals. What's so funny, Leslie? And anyhow, the dream is that this work, at the worst, will filter out through all parts of society and into all walks of life. If this place carries forward, that it will get smarter and better and ever more tuned to support those that are dedicated for the possibility of the future well-being of civilization. I wrote a book recently called The Clean Money Revolution. It talks about the issues of money that will happen tomorrow and tells some of the stories of this place. Rex has written a series of books that are really fascinating books, and there's a store here. You can have a look at them. May this work of all of us help seed that which will take us through the ecological, climate, and justice crisis that we're facing on the planet right now. These places matter. Thank you.
I've gotten a little used to going right after Joel. It's never that easy. But I was thinking, as I was listening to everyone, and first of all, I just say that I'm just so honored to be up here with all of you. And you've all meant a lot to me in the last few years. Obviously, I've worked very closely with Dana and Joel, and it's been a true honor. It's a huge reason why I took the job. And I was thinking, there's one other person I just want to name in this room, and that's Karen Mahan, who's sitting there, waving, board member, vice chair. And I'd come to Hollyhock 5 times in 10 years, only to social change conferences. I worked in social justice and politics. And I knew Dana and I knew Joel a little bit. And I knew the job was available. And so I met with Joel, which was a little, like we hadn't really had too many coffees before, but I was like, hey, do you want to have a coffee? He said, yes. And he said, what do you know about running a hotel? And I was like, nothing. And he was like, well, it's a hotel. And I was just like, okay. And then I just like awkwardly got through the next 30 minutes. And I was just like, okay, that was a wrong deal. And then I was on vacation on a ferry. I remember on a ferry, and Karen called me. She's like, why haven't you applied? And I was like, well, Jill told me it's a hotel. And she's like, nope. Well, that's not exactly what she said, but I'm not going to say what she said. And then she said, you really need to apply. You really need to apply. And I thought, oh, God, okay. And I sort of waited. And you can see, like, why would anyone follow these people? Like, these are big shoes to fill all the way down. And I thought about that a lot. So I wrote the craziest cover letter I could ever have written, like just totally like, they will not accept this. No, they loved it. It was unfortunate. And I just kept kind of rolling with the process. Like I was just like, okay, I had a good job. I was working in politics and technology company. Anyways, that all happened. And so I started on August 1st, 2017. And I didn't really know what I was in for. Like being totally honest, people ask me all the time, like, how's your job? And I'm like, it's good. Like, I'm like, it's, what I actually say is I really love the job. Great people. It's a real beast. And those things are really true. For me, I've been thinking about this a lot. I was talking to Siobhan about this earlier, but for me, it's really and I'm confused about that. But for me, it really feels like it's about the means and not necessarily the end. Because as Joel pointed out, and as Rex has been working on his whole life, well, everyone up here has been working on their whole life, like, we don't know what the end's going to be. You know, some people say 12 years. Who knows? And so my thing is kind of like, how do we get there? How do we roll through? It's about the means. It's like about how you show up. And so anyways, the people are a huge reason why I'm here. And I was thinking about, like, so one of the things that I noticed really quickly about this organization was the board of directors was actually one of the best run boards I'd ever seen. I mean, keep in mind, I hadn't seen super functional boards before, but it was a very well run board. And I really appreciated two things right at the beginning. One is that they went through a recruiter, even though they knew me. And that's, you know, why would you spend $50,000 on a recruiter or whatever it was? But that actually sent me a real message. It was like, this is real. This is serious. Like, we're not fucking around here. This is serious. And the second thing is they offered me when I came, they said, it's up to your discretion. Totally your call. But Dana can act as an advisor to you if you'd like. And I was like, what do you mean it's my call? Yes. The answer is yes. Like, there's nothing. Yes, please. And through the first year and actually continuing now, Dana is an advisor to me, and it's been a real game changer. One of the things I'll say about Dana, you know, I worked with Joel and Dana really closely. And Dana, the great thing about Dana is she's good. Like, she tells me something, you know, maybe you should consider this. And I'm like, yep. I don't do it. And she, like, there's nothing. It's like there's no edge in it. If I'm thinking about centers and generational transfer, that I think has been a like tremendous successful piece. And now I don't know what Dana thinks in her mind, obviously. And I'm sure sometimes she is like, what is that guy doing? In fact, I know that's the case, but she said it a couple times. She has said it a couple times. But really, I think that like openness to sort of say, as she said, like the wind changed. Like, my time, I did all of these things, but I'm willing to like let it be something different. Let it be something different. And that's not easy. That's easy. That's like a lot of for everyone on this. Joel has been the board chair during this process, and I think that Joel and I, it's been harder for us. And that's one of the hard things about this role is that I was talking to Loretta about something totally different, but she had a really good frame. She's like, what do you want to continue that you have, and what do you want to change? And that, like, these animals that we are, we don't like that change thing all that much. And it plays into all the things we have going on. And so I'm pretty grateful for the opportunity to live through this change. It is a beast. It's not super easy. Some days I'm like, what? But here I am. Thank you.
Okay. Let's all take a breath, shall we? Thank you to each of you. Your wild, remarkable imaginations and hearts that have brought us to this day. So we are going to shift now to the Q&A portion of the evening. We're doing pretty well, 15, 20 minutes. I hope you've all been thinking about questions in your minds. I will say that all 5 of you, I think, will be dipping in and out and around over the next 5 days. We have an oyster barbecue on Wednesday. So think of this as a taster. But we would love to get some of your questions in the room because I have a sense that it might be relevant to quite a few of us. So I'm going to run the mic. And if you have a question, just raise your hand. If you could just say your name and the center you're from. And ideally, if you could direct a question to 1 or 2 people, that would be fantastic. And that'll get as many questions as possible into the room. How does that sound? Questions? you don't want your stuff recorded, just let us know that too, and we can turn off the tape.
So Dana and Joel, I'm Heather from the Whidbey Institute, and grateful for the connections. Knowing the beast internally, what would be your wish for those?
Be courageous and remember your ancestors. Remember the people who came before you, acknowledge and do the courageous things.
Make sure it matters.
We're being briefed.
Knowing the beast inside, knowing the challenges, your wish, holding this in the ear.
Say, pray to whoever it is you
Well, to me, the purpose was to begin the process and help the process of humankind making peace with this place where we live, planet Earth. And so my hope would be that people taking on this project or any other project would apprentice themselves to that earth and not necessarily assume that they're going to figure it out. That we have to learn what we need to do from the earth.
Thank you. I'm Duncan from Clear Sky Center. I was wondering what you felt really helped. It was beautiful how you were sharing. It seemed the sort of vision or the thread carried through. And I'm wondering what you feel, this is to anyone who wants to answer, what you feel really helped that. Was it finding the right people with the right heart? Was there a kind of vision you had written down that followed through? Or what helped that thread change but carry on? Yeah, whoever. I mean, it flowed across all five, so whoever.
I love that question. You know, and everybody laughed when I said, well, say your prayers, but I think that there is it's something that we had from the beginning, a sense of the sacred that was involved, that it was a bunch of dreaming it up on our own. There was some entity watching this place and entrusting it to us that we would look after and revere it. That's like never ever. It was absolutely how we felt about it, and no one has ever thought of it.
Yeah. It was service. And so in true service, one isn't in charge. And so I think that was, and we had principles and we had values, and I think that's very important. But I would say it's not easy to pass on principles, because people have to learn them themselves and believe in them and find them, discover them themselves. So you want to pass on your principles. I mean, even to your own children. If you have children, what they learn is what they see you do. It's a very deep sort of thing. So I think it was that feeling at service, and that being at service carries its own self. We don't care. We serve it.
agree. And I would say also, I wish y'all could have been there the night that Siobhan kind of handed over the reins to me. Now, it wasn't really her place because in a certain sense, but in every true sense, it was absolutely her place. And she kind of put a pretend sword over my head and said, practical magic, practical magic. I'll never forget that. It was at Torkin's house. So I would say that was a thread that for me was something very important.
This has always been a non-denominational, eclectic mix of all kinds of traditions and beliefs. A lot of wily coyotes have come through this place and been part of founding it and carrying it forward. And I just want to add my version on the one piece of advice that I feel is important to the whole world right now, but particularly those of us carrying these kinds of bodies of work: prayer and magic. And just meditate on that.
I don't know how exactly to speak to the question, because I'm somewhat of like a recipient of something, but I can say that I think trying to find the balance between like what you are, what were, and what the world is asking you to be is really like the fine balance.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Oren from Commonweal, and I know we share some roots too. I'm wondering if you might have any examples of times when there maybe was a tension between the origin story, the lineage, and the desire to move ahead, and how does that get, or how does that narrative unfold?
There's never been tension here. I can speak to a little bit. I just don't know where to start. I'm gonna use an example. So I remember so Joel and I over the last 18 months have had a number of disagreements. And I think they've been hard kind of on both of us a little bit in real time. And but I remember one in particular where Joel's probably still mad about it, but where I was working with our comms team, and I had this thing in my head that I was just like, God, I gotta stop watching CNN. Like I was just saying that to myself. Like that was just something. And I thought that was like really normal. I was just like, of course I'd want to stop watching CNN. Like that is the worst, to go to CNN. Because all I see is Donald Trump. And so we wrote a email blast to like, I don't know, 5,000 people that was just like said, stop watching CNN. Or something like that. Yeah, something like that. And Joel immediately sent me an email, and he was like, this cannot be the narrative of the organization. And Joel and I sort of have this pattern where I go, well, you hired a new CEO. What do you want? Which isn't really fair. Like, it's not fair to him. But it's like my natural response. And so we kind of like, I don't know if we ever talked through that one, but we tried to talk through those things. Doesn't always work, though. Doesn't always work. And so I think that's like a real tension in any time you're moving through something like this, is like Joel's point, and I understand it, is that like you can't tell people not, like this is a very specific example, but you can't tell people not to watch the news. Like we want engaged citizens. And my thing is people got to get out of that news cycle because they're trapped in this like Donald Trump blah, 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 barf bag. And so what do you do? I don't know.
I just want to say we're educational charitable, not for profit, and we don't do partisan politics here. Thank you. Yeah. So it's been a short time, and we haven't told you all the bloodbaths and battles and disagreements and pains and sufferings. The good news is that we've made it through them all, and that we have remained friends, I think, for the most part. There's probably some people that came through at times and spun off somewhere else. But we have not been afraid to really clash and deal with stuff. There have been very serious issues that have come up here over the years, and we've gotten through them. And when I say prayer and magic, I believe those are very pragmatic things. Like, we have people that are serious about getting the job done and pulling it off effectively and being good to people and handling ourselves well. It's a very high bar. And so there are periods of conflict. And age is helpful. I can't remember any of them now. But in all seriousness, this is not a just everything's pretty and let's make it all smooth. We do our best to keep it solid. We don't want to blow the place apart or each other. But this has been a vessel in which serious disagreements can happen, and people in roles that end up not staying in them or being kept in them. And so all that real thing happens here.
Yes, plenty of moments. I remember telling myself, this is a lifelong learning center, and it's really okay to learn and to not know everything and to be open to those disagreements. But I can tell you, as the longtime leader of the organization, it wasn't, those kinds of times were really hard and they weren't fun. But afterward, it felt so much better to have actually gone through the process and heard what people had to say and work through stuff and learn stuff.
Yeah, and you asked, so when we met those moments, how did we get through them? And I would say, at least in my experience, we fumbled through them with every technique and non-technique that you can imagine, and including ignore it and pretend that it didn't happen and hope it goes away. Puff up and try and bully the other person into thinking the way you think. We fell into all the traps of ego, and and Siobhan and I in the early years, and Lee, her partner, had many conflicts about the tiniest thing. We need to hire somebody, but we don't have enough money. Should we really hire somebody? Who's going to be in charge of that person? And it's funny you say the thing about don't watch CNN. I'm with you on that one. But things that people would say, things that Siobhan would say in public, and I'd go, oh, Siobhan. Or I would say in public, and she'd go, Rex, you can't say that. And and part of that is discovering if you're part of a family, so to speak, if you're part of a group, if you're part of a family, you have to give up part of your freedom to, because the things you say and do are going to impact other people in that family. And I think that giving up of your freedom, at least for me, was probably one of the hardest. I don't really like people telling me what I can say or not say. You'd say, yeah, Siobhan's going, yeah. But anyway, we're skipping over some specifics because I'm not sure it would help. You guys all get it. You've been through it yourselves. And I don't think we had any sort of magic thing, although going back to the idea that we were serving something that was not us, That was probably the most important thing that I remember that would sort of help, at least me, I'm speaking personally, swallow my ego for a moment and let it wash on and let it wash over, and here we are.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that is that this has been my school. This is where I came when I was 30. And this is where I grew up. And I'm haven't been working or board here for quite a long time now, 15 years, but maybe longer. But I learned so much, and that I've carried out into the other work that I do in the world, and where I've been the leader and have been able to teach other people in that kind of a way. It's a school.
How are we doing?
We're good. I think we have time for one more.
Yeah. Thank you, mahalo. Thank you so much for all that you're sharing. And I'm Joel from the Grace Center at Kohala Institute, and I'm happy to be among friends, new ones and some that I've met the last couple of years. So difficult conversations are really important, and they're on the top, it's always on my mind. It's not, especially in light of the theme of this conference in terms of what the center's movement is about, because I do see it as movement work, but also where we are in society, right, to have those difficult conversations. So thank you I do kind of want to know how you, and it doesn't have to be fully formed out theories, but what do you need to have those difficult conversations? Like, what are the things that you have to, and I think shared values can help you push through that, right? Persistence, and I think not being afraid to make an ass out of yourself, I think is really important. So I would love it if you guys could speak to that a little bit more, because I really do think difficult conversations are important, and I think we need to make occasions to have difficult conversations with each other, right? But really the part B, if you don't want to get into that, is what are the difficult conversations we must have? Like, really, for real. Like, not just what are the really risky things, touchy things that are important, cannot gloss over?
I have a few. I really think we're still hung up in our human world, that we still, our culture teaches over and over again that our concerns are the ones that are important. And I think that ecology, which was kind of a new word in the 1970s, when Greenpeace was starting, and even in the 80s when this place was starting, is now assumed to be sort of common. We're all environmentalists, we're all ecologists, we all care about wild nature. But I think one of the very tough questions we have to deal with is, what are we going to do with this massive human amoeba that's adding 90 million more humans every year? All with needs and all with desires and all who want a better life and all who want more stuff. And every year, we're losing our other species brothers and sisters, and I don't think we're addressing it. Even the most advanced environmental part of the environmental movement is not necessarily dealing with it. We have to start talking about the impact of a growing human society on a finite planet that's suffering, for our pleasures and egos. There's one.
So, Joel, thanks. So great to see you here. I think the answer to your first question was, what skills do you need to have difficult conversations? I think one is trust. And where trust doesn't exist, it's very hard to have conflict, of course. But then you get in this catch-22 where you don't have trust, but you have bad conflict. So I think a facilitator is a good thing to have, and actually make time. Like actually say what this is. It's not just like I'm blowing up at you at work. You're triggering me. It's like we're actually going to take some time to have a facilitated conversation about this difficult topic that we can't seem to get around. But for me, it's all about trust and then conflict. That's something, feel the vibe from over at this side, but like we talk a lot about trust and conflict, staff side. We talk a lot about trust and conflict. And I think that one of the things I came in and I just said, like, I'm going to mine for conflict in this place. Say the thing, that's right. But then the second thing, the question you asked, I agree with Rex. But I think for centers like Hollyhock, really, there's two things I think are really important conversations we need to have right now that are prickly and hard. One is, actually three. One is this conversation, generational transfer. And like using the skills of answer A in that, we're going to have facilitated difficult conversations that have conflict. Number one. And then number two is just like about the business model. What is this model? Does it work? Does earned revenue plus philanthropic dollars work? Is that the right model? Maybe, in a country like Canada, small country, maybe not. And then the third is about equity. I think that, we look around any of our centers' rooms and it's mostly white, middle-aged people. And that is just even from a business perspective, that's it's not the future. And those are really hard conversations, especially for white people. And there's a lot of courage.
My addition. Equity and ecology and leadership. And I believe politics or dealing with power. Those are easy to say, not hard to do, but at least practice them ourselves, work on it, and attempt to share skills for dealing with it. And the simpler thing I want to say at the beginning of it is go to our own courses and actually keep learning.
Well, something that I've learned probably in the last couple of years that I haven't, or a year and a half that I haven't been in the key role of leading the organization, is that it's really important to listen and be nimble so that when an issue becomes at the forefront, like climate change, for example, that we pay attention to that, learn all we can, and actually do what we can and use our centers for the benefit of mankind, humankind, and people. Because those people that Rex is talking about, we are those people, and we have to do the best we can right here, right now. And I think also the age-old qualities of importance like compassion and kindness and generosity through those conversations seem to be really critical at this time when that's not being practiced everywhere that we are.
Do we get to sing now? Yeah? Okay. A few songs I'd love to teach you, or maybe. One is one that we learned here from Susan Osborne. Anyone know Susan Osborne? She sang with the Paul Winter concert. The Paul Winter concert, yeah. So was one of our first singing guests here. And the words are, I'll just say them. It's translation from Russian. So the words are, it's an interestingly, strange connection of words, but here it is. The words are, if the people live their lives as if it were a song for singing out of light, providing music for the stars to be dancing circles in the night. So line by line. If the people live their lives, if the as if it were a song for singing out of light, as if it were a song for singing out of light. If the people live their lives as if it were a song for singing out of light, providing music for the stars, providing music for the stars to be dancing circles in the night, to be dancing circles in the night from the top. If the people live their lives as if it were a song for singing out of light, providing music for the stars to be dancing circles in the night. If the people live their lives as if it were a song for singing out of light, providing music for the stars to be dancing circles in the night. Now just this side. If the people live their lives as if it were a song for singing out of light, be dancing circles in the night. If the people live their lives, if the people live their lives as if it were a song for singing out of light, be dancing circles in the night. How about dancing it? Circles in the night. If the song living out of light, for the stars to be dancing circles in the night, to be dancing circles in the night, to be dancing circles in the night. All right, yeah. So we've been singing that song around here for a long time. So I want to teach you a new one, though. And this one, written by Melanie Demores, an African-American singer-songwriter. And just repeat after me. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Don't give up hope. Don't give up hope. You're not alone. You're not alone. Don't you give up. Don't you give up. Keep moving on. Keep moving on. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lift up your eyes. Don't you despair. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. Look up ahead. The path is there. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other. Lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other. I know you're scared. And I'm scared too. But here I am. Right next to you. You gotta put one foot, and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other, and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other, and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other, and lead with love. There you go. All right.
Thank you so much. I've never seen anyone quite lead a room in song like Siobhan Robinsong. Thank you, everyone. These 5 people loved this place into being, and here we are, and we have another 5 days to talk about that. So thank you. Again, can we get another round of applause for our panel?